Welcome to Thriller Recaps. Today, I am explaining the movie Felon, explaining every scene as it happens. Watch till the end, and please like, share and subscribe if you enjoy this. The movie begins with a man named Wade Porter jogging back home for breakfast. His fiancée brought up the money for the wedding gown, which was quite expensive, so he asked his son if his mother should go for it, and he nodded. The next scene moves to Wade picking mail from the mailbox. He excitedly told his wife the content. They were moving. At night, while they were sleeping, someone broke in. Wade took his baseball bat and instructed his fiancée to go be with their son. He saw the burglar pick up something and asked him to stop, but he wouldn't. So, Wade chased after him and hit the burglar's head with the bat, and the burglar dropped dead. He called the police, who later investigated that the burglar had no gun on him, so it couldn't be a case of self-defense. They had to arrest the man for murder, which they did. After the criminal rounds, he was taken to the cell where he was kept with other criminals. One of them picked a fight with him that quickly escalated, with the police stepping in and taking the man to central jail. After serving one day, his fiancée visited, expressing how their son had been asking questions, but she lied to him. He assured her that he would be fine and hopefully out. Wade received a visit from the lawyer for his case. She asked him to sign something with his parents, but he responded, saying both of them were dead. The lawyer promised that she would do her best to get a good result in him leaving the prison. The scene moves to San Diego State Prison where it was full of chaos, things burning. It transports to John in a single caged bar. Another man came to meet John, telling him how it wouldn't be easy to let him go scot-free. Apparently, John had started the ruckus, and this wasn't the first time. The man told John that the last help he could offer was to transfer him so that he could have a fresh start. The lawyer visited Wade again, with Wade confronting her about his hearing, which was supposed to be weeks ago. The lawyer explained how she had asked for more time because it was a two-way case. If Wade pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, he would be charged with 3 years, including the time he had spent already. The only other option could only happen if they waited a year for the jury. Wade pleaded guilty in court and was sentenced to 3 years. He was on the bus going to the yard when a criminal tried to talk to him. He showed Wade who was who and what their behavior was like. It didn't take time for a fight that seemed planned to break out, and a guy was stabbed. One of the persons who started the fight passed something to Wade's new acquaintance and rubbed his bloody hands on his clothes. The bus arrived at the prison yard, and Wade's acquaintance whispered for him not to say anything. To Wade's dismay, he wouldn't tell him what was happening. The bus stopped, and the cops walked in. One of them sounded a warning for everyone to behave. The cops noticed the half-dead man and instructed everyone to get down while they figured all of this out. Apparently, a weapon had been planted under Wade's seat, and he was kept in a confined cell. He screamed and cried for them to let him go or at least give him one phone call, but nobody responded. He was released from the confined cell and brought in for investigation. When the cops asked him to reveal who caused the fight, Wade refused. They knew who did, they just needed a name from Wade, but he was adamant not to. He was later taken to his new home, as the cops escorting him called it. The cuffs on his hands were removed after he had spent 11 days serving his jail term. The cops came back the next day, searched every part of his body, and stripped him before they cuffed him and let Wade out of his cell. The place he was taken to had other inmates, and a fight broke out almost immediately after he stepped in, with the cops watching from behind the bar until they shot the two people fighting. One of the inmates stood up and challenged the cops, demanding the reason why they did that. The cops apprehended him, and he got beaten by the head cop of the prison, who said the offender should be paraded to show others what happened if they offended him. Wade's fiancée visited the prison. She was asked to strip off her shirt and bra before she could talk to Wade, which she complied with. On meeting Wade, she expressed how she missed him and was surprised that he was now in state security. Wade explained that he had caught up with something. The conversation led to his fiancée telling him they had no money left and she couldn't get a job. Wade asked her to use his check loans that were meant for his business. She had declined at first but had to accept the latter as Wade had insisted. John Smith was transferred to the same prison as Wade and the same cell. John asked Wade to switch bunks, and Wade agreed. The next morning, they were both woken up to go for workouts. John familiarized himself with some of the inmates while Wade met with his acquaintance from the bus who thanked him for his help. They returned to the cell and got talking. Wade told John how he was supposed to get married 4 months ago and stretched the picture of his son Michael to John. John expressed how Michael looked like Wade a lot. He explained how his son had taken his mother's features. Wade asked if he had a picture of his son, but John's property had been taken away by the cop. He expressed that the only thing they couldn't take was the way his woman looked at him like he was the only man on earth. John explained the deep-rooted prison politics and stated, "If it isn't white, it isn't right." This came after Wade had asked who John had spoken to, turns out it was someone who apparently had all the keys. During the workout, Wade was nudged by his bus acquaintance to fight with someone, and he did. Initially, he had not retaliated, but when he did, he beat the fellow inmate up. The head lieutenant had asked a newly hired cop to pull the trigger, but he refused, and the head did it himself, shooting the already battered inmate, but not Wade. He expressed his anger at the cop's defiance because if the inmates were so weak, they'd flip. Every day since then, it was fight after fight for Wade. In his 231 days served, his fiancée and son visited. After checking up and worrying about an inmate guarding him, his fiancée asked about their financial situation, and when it wasn't good, he asked her to sell the house and the trucks. Wade was nudged by his bus acquaintance to go fight again, but this time he refused, saying he never saw the bus acquaintance fight himself, and they started gang beating him, saying he thought he was hot stuff now. John tried to step in, but the cops ordered that they lay flat after throwing tear gas at them. Wade was unconscious with a bloodied face from the beating he encountered. John paced continuously in the cell until Wade returned. He expressed his dissatisfaction at Wade for dragging him into his mess. Those guys who beat Wade up would have greenlighted both of them. Wade was in pain, so he didn't say much and just went to sleep after dropping a thank you to John. The next day at workouts, Samson, the man who had killed someone in the bus and was also on the cops' radar, who was apparently the bus acquaintance boss, and his goons met with Wade and John. The bus acquaintance tried to blame Wade, but Samson wouldn't hear any of it and instigated them to all fight until the cops came with their alarm blaring. The scene moves to the newly transferred cop and his pregnant wife shopping when they met the lieutenant, and he acted all kind to a fault. The scene takes us to the lieutenant and another cop watching the LT's son play hockey. The other cop told the LT that he wasn't really feeling all the doings of the cell, but the lieutenant convinced him that he couldn't get such fast cash anywhere and there was a reason they were the most paid. When the duos returned back to the cell, Wade asked how John had survived years in the prison. Wade also spoke about his family situation and asked for a clearer explanation of what John did. Wade apologized when he thought he had crossed the line, but John brushed it off, saying a man has to know information about another. John explained how he had come back home to meet his wife and daughter in a pool of their blood with broken bones beyond repair. He knew the two people involved, but he wanted to pass the same unfortunate events he did, so he tracked and killed every single person in their bloodline. He wanted a death sentence, but he was given life imprisonment. Wade's fiancée had visited. This time, they ended up fighting because she was tired while Wade chilled with his homeboys. Wade tried to explain, but it fell on deaf ears as she walked away angrily. At workouts, they tried to start a fight with Wade, but he didn't want to, and the lieutenant shot at Wade, sending him to the floor. Wade had woken up, but he was cuffed on both legs. The lieutenant had an electrocution device in his hands, and he was ready to use it. Wade begged, but he wouldn't listen. He had asked Wade to turn Samson in, but he had refused. Still, Wade was ready to do it now, but this time the deal was expired. The man that was stabbed in the bus had died. Wade and Samson were taken to court. He was given 4 months left to leave prison, but he got an additional 6 years for involving Samson in the death and also gang involvement. Samson got a life sentence. Wade's fiancée and her mother were present during the judgment, and when they got back home, the mother told her to move on because she was getting too old. They ensued in a squabble that ended with the mother calmly saying she didn't want her daughter to be lonely at 50 just like she was. Wade received a letter from his fiancée saying they couldn't be together anymore. Wade sobbed and cried. He went to work out and took his anger out on one of the inmates, almost killing him. The cops shot in the air. Wade explained to John how he had lost everything and he didn't care anymore. The lieutenant visited the hospital to see his son being rushed to the ER after a gushing accident. They explained what happened to him. Apparently, a man had run over, and he was in another section. The lieutenant paid the person a visit in his ward and threatened that if anything happened to see his son, then he would make sure that the man ended up in jail. After he left the hospital premises, he cried in pain. Wade's fiancée was taking Wade's clothes to another apartment when the son asked why. She explained that life courses change. She noticed Michael missing his father and decided to pay Wade a visit in the cell. She told him how Michael didn't want to be apart from his father, and to be honest, it was hard for her too. Wade told her how her letter had killed him, and if they weren't around, then there was nothing he was returning back to. The fiancée suggested that she would wait if he wanted her to. She didn't care. Wade asked John to help him get out of here when he got back from his meeting with his fiancée, Laura. John explained that the only way was to expose the shady things the cops were doing, and he would have to do that by thinking outside the walls of the prison. Wade sketched a plan. he had written an address for Laura to go meet someone while he went to meet Lieutenant Jackson to tell him that he was ready to fight a particular inmate for revenge. Jackson agreed, but he noted that Wade would have to kill someone because it was killed or be killed. One of them wasn't alive. Wade briefly spoke to the newly transferred cop who expressed that Wade shouldn't go on with the fight. Wade didn't know why he cared when he was one of them. The cops tried to express that he wasn't, but Wade wouldn't know unless he did something. The fight started, but in no time, he had the upper hand but didn't kill the inmate. Jackson shot the floor beside him and told him to do it, or the next shot was on him. Wade prepared himself for the bullet, but John stepped in front of him. This prompted the other inmate to step in for Wade too. Jackson couldn't shoot, so he instructed them to be taken to the yard. Meanwhile, Laura was on her way with the man Wade had asked her to meet. Lieutenant Jackson readied to kill Wade and set it up on John. He moved closer to doing it. John stepped forward and got shot twice until he died. The newly transferred cop also helped by putting everything on video. Jackson also got shot, and the newly transferred cop blazed the alarm. Laura arrived with the help of the FBI who were taking over the case. Wade was kept in protective custody until he would be released in 3 months, prior to the earlier 7 years. John had kept a letter for Wade. In his words, it didn't matter if one became a felon. And if Wade was to kill again to protect his family, he should do it with no second thoughts. Because John would kill to have his back. Subscribe for more daily videos. Your support, likes, shares, and subscriptions mean a lot. See you in the next video.